My brother-in-law, oh, I hope he doesn't see this, my brother-in-law was a doctor and he lived in Queensland and we lived in the Southern Highlands, so it was quite a long trip. And he came down about 3 weeks after the diagnosis, I suppose, and he basically was of that same ilk. Stop punishing yourself. You know, you don't need to do this, it's not going to make any difference.
Researcher, cook, advocate, the second opinion at every appointment. The wife behind the longest living mesothelioma patient, Sue Kraus. Doctors gave her husband Paul just months, but Sue helped him live 27 years. This is her story.
And I am really a very mild-mannered person. I do not lose my temper easily. In fact, I hardly ever could say I'd lost my temper. But he was in our house when he told Paul, stop wasting your time with this diet. And I just turned around and said, if you cannot be supportive, and I remember saying, you can leave now. And so it's an irony that I think he still can't quite believe that Paul survived for 27 years. Paul was pretty amazing. We met at university and it was almost love at first sight. Almost. I thought he was kind, considerate, helpful, as well as good looking. And yeah, we just hit it off immediately. And I had no idea at the time what a journey life was going to be. And then once he was diagnosed with mesothelioma, he just became the most disciplined, determined person. He was absolutely dedicated to trying to heal himself. He was only 52, so he had a lot to live for. And yes, he was just such a determined individual. And we just kept going with the diet and all the various things that we implemented. Well, he did have a strong faith, a very strong faith. And even the day he was diagnosed, the next morning, well, we didn't sleep much that night, but when we got up, he said to me, I truly don't believe this is my time. I do not believe that I'm meant to go now. And so I think that that gave him the impetus to absolutely work on whatever he could to stay well. And as I said before, he just had this incredible determination and discipline, much more than so many people. I probably didn't expect him to be so enthusiastic about everything. So for instance, I was amazed that someone who, as I think I mentioned before, someone who absolutely loved good coffee was willing to give it up and have carrot juices instead and do that long term and things like that. And the diet generally and exercise. He exercised every day of his life. He had a rowing machine, he had a walking machine, he had this sort of little trampoline type thing that was called a lymphosizer. Moving the lymph is really important. And he would do this every single day, twice a day, without fail. Even when we went to Perth, which of course is a 3-4 hour flight, we knew we were going to be over there for 6 weeks having some treatment. We literally packed up the juicer, packed up the trampoline and sent them ahead of us. I mean, that's determination. You know, wouldn't get many people that would do that, but it was like, I can't miss out on that. I've got to do it. So he would do it. That particular doctor who told us to go out and stop punishing ourselves with the diet, he was an oncologist. And the irony of that, I actually have with me here at the moment a letter written by that doctor because years later, Paul wrote to him to tell him that he was still alive. And he replied, which was at least something, and he said, well, there are spontaneous remissions. What a pity we don't understand the mechanism. Sorry. We've been doing this, and this, and we don't understand the mechanism. Well, as I've said, we don't understand exactly what helped Paul. It was a combination of things. But he was implying that, yes, you can get spontaneous remission. And of course, some people do get spontaneous remission. It would vary. There would be people who just couldn't or wouldn't change their lifestyle. They would think it was just too hard. There were people who would only listen in a very narrow way to what the medical profession told them. And it's that people who give over their life purely to the medical profession who I think have a harder time surviving. Because I'm not saying you shouldn't follow doctors' advice necessarily, but I'm saying it's not the only thing you should do. You really need to add in the other things as well. I think what a lot of people would do these days is resort to the internet. You've been given a diagnosis of something that you really don't know very much about. The doctor may not have been very helpful, and I think that it's very important to gather as much information as you can. And I was going to say, I should give Paul's book a plug here, because on the internet, the information, there's so much. How do you narrow down what is really valuable? And it's far better to be able to read the experience of someone who's gone through it rather than just the medical scientific knowledge about mesothelioma. And Paul's book actually covered all of the aspects. You know, he did diet, he did meditation, he did the power of the mind. Everything is in there. From one of the chapters is the first time you meet your oncologist. What are the questions to ask? I would say don't give up hope. Hope is physiologic. Hope can change the body chemistry, and that hope can be provided by any number of modalities, various treatments, and Paul was living proof of that. He chose to embrace other means and was alive 27 years later.